the studio of your mom's basement comes a podcast by two idiots in a revolving door of legends and has-beens from the oldest university in Texas. This is Purple, Gold, and Getting Old.
Yo, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. It's been a minute.
Happy Kwanzaa. It's all of it. It's, I don't think we've recorded since even football was still going on, which, you know, I'll go ahead and say when you are a fan of UMHB, A&M, Tech, the Texans, football kind of ended in increments of 1 week at a time. The Texans never started this year.
Yeah.
The Aggies were done after week 2. Scratch that. I went to the opening A&M game against Sam Houston, and I left in the middle of I left right before halftime. I was like, I think I know how the season's going to go.
You know, crew football always going so late into the year always causes me issues. I'll tell you something my wife said to me recently, which was possibly the most demasculating.
Hold on. I'm sorry, folks. I just spilled coffee all over the Crunk the Crusader mouse pad sitting next to me. So I just sort of killed myself in this picture.
Put some respect on that.
I know. I poured some caffeine on it.
So you know, UMHB always plays super late into the playoffs, and it's affected things for me. My wife looks at me the other day where I was thinking about going on a hunt, and she just said, "Hey, this time could you at least please bring back some food?" And it was like, went straight to like my caveman part of my brain was like, oh, I must provide meat for my wife.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Hunt, but I have been unsuccessful. Well, here's why. I haven't actually shot a deer in several years because in 2016, after we beat Linfield in the regular season, I was like, you know what? I think this is going to be a special season. I'm not going to go hunting in the fall. I'm here every game. I'm going to ride. And sure enough, that really paid off well. And so then that continued on to 17 and 18. 19 was, 20 didn't exist. So, you know, I got a little bit of hunting then maybe. But I think I've had some bad luck too, is the other thing. So I basically hunted once or twice in the last 6.5 years.
I feel that.
Because of crew football. So
I get so busy. Okay, in college, I never had time. 2 of the first 3 years after college, I didn't have time for various things. And it was like luck. So like I think it was when I was living in Houston, I was about to go to my ranch. I'm like, dadgummit, this is it. So I go, I renew my license, all that kind of stuff. I don't even remember what happened that year, but it was one of those things where I physically and logistically could not be there. So it's kind of the point where at least a decade, every time I've tried to go, no, so I'm like, screw it, let's just go hunt hogs instead.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. You know, and like part of it for me, I can go hunting at my wife's family's property probably anytime I want, but like it's not fun to go hunt by yourself. And then with the buddies I grew up hunting with, you know, they all want to hunt Saturday night and Sunday, but I work at a church, so that doesn't work out. Man, yeah, it's just life.
Well, I just put out a song that makes fun of people who only go hunting for Instagram. And
I didn't know that was a phenomenon.
Well, look how many people pretend in their country because they own boots or they hunt once a year in like a confined pay-to-play ranch type thing. And I'm just like, I'd rather not go than to pretend, like people who watch Yellowstone and think they're a cowboy, you know? Like, So I was like, as I'm putting that song out, I'm thinking to myself, at least those guys get to go. You know,
One of my best friend's granddads, whose property we grew up hunting on, still try to go hunt with them a lot. He would raise deer and like feed them protein and like have people from like New York City come pay like tens of thousands of dollars or whatever to go hunt. Wow. And so they had some big buck they'd just been growing forever. This dude paid so much money for it, and it dies like the week where this guy's supposed to get hunted. And so they threw it in a freezer and then like propped it up like way far away. And the guide was like, you see that over there? Yeah, that's the good, just shoot it. And they're like, do we want to go like gut it and everything? No, don't worry about it. We'll take care of that for you. So this New Yorker like had no clue that he shot like a weak dead old deer.
Amazing. Amazing.
Incredible.
Well, you know, speaking of shooting and burying dead bodies, you know, people are really into true crime podcasts these days. So I think our 25 to 35 female demographic of listeners is about to grow up, because you might think that this upcoming series is a true crime podcast. I posted on our Instagram page the other day, and a reminder, folks, if you're interacting with us on Twitter, it's Tyler. If Instagram, it's probably me. So, and if you've interacted with us on Facebook, I apologize. We probably haven't looked at it in like 6 months. So
I was going to say, if you did that, you're probably our great aunt.
Actually, shout out to Alyssa Berryhill, who actually commented on our Facebook page not too long ago, asking when the next episodes were going to be. And I'm like, we have a Facebook still. I've just remembered. So, we have come to a series we always knew we were going to do. We just didn't really know when. And for those that knew us, you are familiar with the Friar Tuck game. For those who were not familiar with us, you're going to learn today.
It's, I think a Friar Tuck is a philosophy. It is really what it is.
It's a way of life.
Yeah. There's Plato, there's Aristotle, there's Kierkegaard, there's Nietzsche. And then there's a guy named Bret. And he provided a philosophy. I can't tell you if it's a good philosophy or not, but it's certainly a philosophy.
It can be. I've had a very stressful week, and this is like the first moment within the last week or 2 weeks where I can, just because we're talking about it, I can feel the philosophy of Friar Tuck. Y'all, we're not talking about Robin Hood characters. We're talking about a time where we went to $1 a Slice Tuesday at Crusader Pizza. Rest in peace. Shout out. And our friend Brent, who ran the place, he was like our bartender, even though we weren't drinking. He might have been, I don't know. Brent, if you're watching, I don't know. I'm asking.
We're at a Baptist school. We didn't go drinking at bars. We didn't do that. But we did go to a pizza place.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
It was our cheers.
That's all, maybe.
So it was around October, and we're sitting there, a group of us, and Brent just yells out us, "Hey guys, I went to this Halloween party the other night." And I should put a disclaimer. It's about to get a little inappropriate, but
this is not an endorsement, by the way.
It's not an endorsement.
This is just, think of the crazy uncle at Thanksgiving who you were terrified of what they're going to say, but you're also like, get out the popcorn.
Yeah.
This is great.
So, and the disclaimer for inappropriate comment, I'm just going to apply that to like the next 7 or 8 episodes. So we're at this pizza place, and Brent yells, "Hey, I went to this Halloween party the other night. I dressed as Friar Tuck, who doesn't give a." So we all kind of looked at him. We're like, that's funny. Maybe Friar Tuck didn't give a. And so he goes, "We all gathered in for this group picture, and I had a 9mm pistol in my pocket. And as we leaned in, I bumped the person in front of me. And I said, 'It's not a real gun, y'all. I'm just excited to see you.'" And at this point, we're not even eating our pizza anymore. We're just like, okay, now where's the story going? Because we thought it was a one-liner. And then he looked at everyone and said, "I'm just kidding. It's a real gun." And so we couldn't stop laughing. And I don't know that the term Friar Tuck would have stuck with us if it hadn't been for Caine Taylor. Because for about a week after that, if I saw Caine somewhere and we were in the midst of one of our public debacles, or people were hollering about us online, or one of us had a test we knew we were going to fail, we'd be like, "How you doing?" Friar Tuck, because we just screw it, So I remember walking across the quad, and I see Caine on the other end of the quad, oncoming traffic. And I'm like, "Yo, Friar Tuck." And we just yell Friar Tuck loud as we can. And per usual, as we talked about on the Emily episode, people are looking at us like, what is wrong with these people? And hopefully through this series, we can help people understand what was wrong with us people. Because when I posted on Instagram last week, I said, if you could ask the worst humans in history a question, what would it be? And the very first one I got was, "Why are y'all the way you are?" Yeah. So hopefully we will do our best to answer what the Friar Tuck gang was about. But
I want to go back briefly and give the setting of this pizza place just to help us understand what a wild character this was.
He's anyone in Belton, it was where Little Bohemian Bakery is now, which by the way,
Luigi's was over there. I don't know if Luigi's
still is
there.
It's still there.
So this is a middle-aged guy who has this cheap pizza place. We go there because we're poor college students, and he just unsolicited, by the way. It's not, we're not like, "Well, hello, gentle, good sir. Would you please tell us your stories?" No, he's just like, "Hey, man." And we're like, who is this guy? He had pictures of his family posted around the pizza shop. but he went through a divorce, and so on every photo of his wife, he had put a picture of a clown, like a clown sticker face, on all of her pictures. At one point, the restaurant just shut down for like 2 weeks without us knowing why. Just one time, he disappeared, and the shop was just closed down for who knows what reason for 2 weeks.
Taking care of some business.
Yeah, he was taking care of business.
We got together, and we were afraid like something bad happened where he wouldn't be back, and we wanted to keep it going. So I'm not going to apologize. We can't be I'll be apologizing every 5 seconds on this series if I had to. But Bret and Nathan, we got together in our apartment, which was Friar Tuck's Cathedral, formerly known as St. Jerome's Cathedral. And Nathan and Bret and I had this idea. We would start the man version of a restaurant, and we would call it Breadsticks. And it would be like Fazoli's and Hooters together, because we knew.
I would like to point out I had no part of it.
Yeah, Tyler was not.
It makes me so uncomfortable to this day.
Tyler and Andy and Caine, they were not in the room for this. This was like a business committee of like 3 dudes, and we were like, dude, Breadsticks, this is it. And so it was one of those things where it's like, okay, if we have to, we'll open his shop for him as Breadsticks, and we'll keep it going. And thankfully, that never had to come to fruition, because A, he came back, and then B, we wouldn't have been able to get in without breaking in. So
yeah, and then I think an important part of this, and also, this is probably going to be the worst podcast episode ever, because what this essentially is, if you really want to say, is this is a podcast about explaining a 15-year-old inside joke.
Sort of. The origin is, it's a 15-year-old inside joke that became the title of what I like to call the 80s rock band that never picked up an instrument. It was, so...
Well, and also Friar Tuck Fridays are a huge part of this too.
Oh, absolutely. And those stayed long after
college. It's part
college.
of what grew the legend, where it's like, you know what? It's Friday. I'm throwing my concerns away. Friar Tuck. I've got an 8 a.m. class, but you know what? Friar Tuck. It's Friday. Didn't work out well for me, by the way.
I would encourage people, and I know I'm probably, I should do this first, but when you're on Twitter or Facebook and you're just about to get in that political argument, just say, you know what, Friar Tuck, and you'll confuse everyone, but you'll win. I'm good. For those of you who are confused out of your mind and still with us, let's just go ahead and tell you who Friar Tuck is. Now, the original, people like the original Leonard Skinner, you had like 20 people in the band playing guitar and like 6 choir girls. That's kind of what we were. I'm going to use this description because I scrapped it from the book. I have nowhere I can use this description except now. There's a purpose, a podcast. Picture, if you will, best rock concert you've ever been to. Stage lights come up. You got up on the drum riser, just killing the drum set, but like kind of like judging all the guys playing guitar would be Bret Myers, keeping the rhythm going, kind of backs everybody up. Then over on the keyboards, got Patrick Prazak just hanging out with Bret. They're on the back platform. Then on either side of the stage, you got the choir girls singing background. And those are all the girls who kept up with us, put up with us, at times mended wounds for us. Thank you, Hannah. Then you get to the main stage at the bottom, where you've got on one side of the stage, Andy Archibald slapping a bass with Tyler Reed just hammering rhythm guitar next to him. On the other side, you got Caine Taylor slapping a guitar, trolling the audience while Nathan tries to play guitar solo next to him. And I'm over there screeching out notes, trying to like lead the stage, and it doesn't always work. So I think that's kind of the rock mentality of what we functioned like.
Well, I had roommates in college who had a come to Jesus meeting with me to tell me it's time to quit trying to play guitar because it was a lost cause. So I don't know if I can relate to playing rhythm guitar. But,
it's funny. The time period in which we were kind of a band, I didn't even play guitar yet. So the whole analogy is kind of like, it's like a metaphor, the band that never played instruments. But there were a lot of women involved with our circle too.
Hey, by the way, that's like a great name for a book or something. The band that never played instruments. I love that.
Well, the band that left the stage is a song about our group. So,
is it really?
Yeah, it's metaphorical. Yeah,
I did not know that.
Fun fact, kids, it's a sequel to Bell County Breakdown.
Metaphor.
Metaphor. So Well, didn't you create a word on a previous episode and we found out it was real? It was like meta. I don't remember.
I'm sure I did.
The original group was very large. It was the guys in our apartment ended up meeting some girls that lived at Bert, but Tyler was also hanging out in our apartment. He knew some girls that lived at Rimshel, and it just became this large United Nations of nonsense. And I would get home. We had a roommate in that apartment with an open sign, and somebody would just turn the open sign on, and if it was blinking, people came up after class. And I'll never forget if there were fewer than 12 people in there, and it was not.
And how long was one of us living in that same apartment? Which is why I really got a name.
Nathan lived in there before no, he hung out in there. I don't remember if he lived in there or not, but I think he lived in there a year or a semester before I did.
Okay.
So it was either spring of 2009 or fall of 2008. And then I lived there with Nathan through May of 2010. And then you moved in there.
Yeah.
So it was easily
so we had a long period.
Long stretch. Yeah. I drove by that apartment the other day. I just want to pull over and say, I'm so sorry. So it was just like this ridiculous gathering.
If walls could talk.
If walls oh, they probably can after all that volume. But anyway, it was one of those things where I walked in after class one day and all the girls are sitting there on the couch watching a movie. And I think Bret might've been with somebody else. I was like, yeah, have y'all seen Nathan? Like, no. I was like, where's Andy? He's off with somebody. I was like, does anyone that actually lives here? Is anyone here that lives in this apartment? Yeah. Like, no. So it was cheers.
What's amazing to me was like, and maybe it was different for some of y'all older folks who actually lived there. Like, I don't ever remember there ever being any alcohol in there. Like, you're yeah, there was. But no, well, like, when we had these big group gatherings, like we were goofy and crazy and having fun and loud and like
it was. So it depended on where we were. So when we started, I say that you can look at the steps almost like a prequel. It's like a bad word these days. Prequel would be my junior year. Each person that started to become a part of our circle because of some things that were happening that year. But what I didn't know was at the end of that year, when stuff hit the fan, it was kind of like a lot of us lost our involvements and everything. A lot of us had our plans for the last time of college kind of changed. So it was like an adversity formed group that none of us really saw coming. And what ended up happening was we had two spots we hung out in that first year. Our apartment, which was the Cathedral, and there was really no alcohol in there. The prior year there were some incidents where I think people brought it in and it turned into an ordeal. But because Nathan and I were under a microscope by that point, so we couldn't even blink without somebody complaining about it to the school. And so it was just, you went somewhere else if you wanted to drink. And that was the Thunderdome. Now the Thunderdome was a house in South Belton in Miller Heights that how that place is still standing, I don't know. But one time, one of the guys that lived there got mad at the landlord and kicked a soccer ball through his window, and they didn't get evicted. So I don't know how. We were always setting fires over there. It was a miracle. But no, we had all those ridiculous times stone cold sober. And it was just the people.
People thought we were like partiers a lot of times.
Everyone
told those,
everyone thought we were hammered all the time, but we were just stupid. It was,
and some of y'all like old, like you and Nathan were older than me, and y'all would like drink on occasion, but like not crazily, at least what I saw. And I was still 19. I never had a sip of alcohol in my life, and so it was so weird and hilarious to me that people would accuse me of them. Like I don't even. What are you talking about? You know, it's like we don't need that to like just be over the top and crazy. We just.
What most people don't realize, like they looked at our group and thought we were like San Marcos had made its way to Belton. The truth is that group kind of pulled me and Nathan out of that scene.
Really? Yeah, I've heard you tell that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, we got so fed up with some things that happened our junior year that we're like, let's just go party with the athletes and all that stuff. And we still would go to parties. We just didn't go crazy. Like if somebody invited us, we'd drop by, say hi. We kept the network going, but. It was really credit to two of the girls that we met early in 2009. They kind of pulled us out of a funk, and now I'm married to one of them. So it was funny how that works out. Yeah. But the main thing, and people are, if you're still with us after all this confusion, the main circle of Friar Tuck was really 7 guys, and 6, or well, really 8, but 7 of us talk regularly, and that's kind of who we're doing the series with. I know there are some of the females that would like to come on the podcast, and we'll probably make that happen too. So yeah, it's I'll go down the lineup because people know who we are, but my roommate Nathan Berryman is going to be on here next week, and I would like to try this, and just to see if your memory can do it. Funniest and most dangerous thing each guy in the group has done, or totally. even better, like those 2 things, but like something you admire about them. Because I feel like behind all the ridiculousness, there's a reason we're all still friends. Because a lot of people go to college and they drink together for 4 years, and then they part ways, but we're all still heckling each other in our 30s. So yeah, I'll start with Nathan. Loyal as anybody gets. Like that dude. There's so many times he should have looked at me and said, "Yo, this is a stupid idea," but instead he would just go, "All right, let's go." Like he'd just go for it, whatever the idea was. Always loyal. He was. I would also say that he doesn't get the credit he deserves. One of the coolest moments for me regarding Nathan, and I don't even know if I've told him this, is I was thrilled to bits when they gave him the lead role for Stunt Night our junior year, because it had been Jeff Payne and me freshman year. Sophomore year, Jeff and I are directing. They gave it to Landon Taylor, but we were always seen with the class, and it was one of those things where there'd been a lot of adversity and just not adversity, animosity between 2 factions of our class going into junior year, to where we started off that Stunt Night with a scattered plot to where everyone could be in a different room and not have to work together on one plot. Like we were as divided as you can get. And there just came a moment where everybody's like, screw that. Stunt Night's why we're friends. And they gave Nathan the lead role, even though he was that closely associated with me. And so I was glad he didn't get ripped off because of me, because I had pushed to get him into Couch Crew as a captain, and I got shot down. I'd pushed to get him involved with stuff, and I think it was just like he finally had his moment. So that would be my, I think, admired and good memory of him, just all the times we were roommates and everything. But funniest thing he's ever done. How
can it not be the box?
It would be the box. I will let him tell that story if he wants. But yeah. I mean, that is by far the most long-lasting and legendary story. But I think the funniest thing he's ever said was when we were filming a talk show my senior year, and we incorporated these, we thought we were like Jimmy Kimmel, back when he was still funny. And we would try to do these skits and stuff, or it was like Key and Peele almost. And we did this thing where the Chronicles of Narnia, but if Chris Hansen had walked in to catch Mr. Tuntonus like a predator. So we're in the Shannon Commons, and Nathan is dressed full on as a fawn, and I'm in a suit interviewing him.
No shirt or anything.
No, he has no shirt. He's got antlers. And I'm like, what were you doing here today? And without skipping a beat, he looks at me and goes, I was just prancing about through the forest, and I came across this little girl, and it wasn't scripted or anything. And I just died laughing. And it was so hard for me to get through the rest of that video because I just didn't know that was coming. So I think that was the single funniest moment for Nathan.
Yeah. I probably don't think it was funny in the moment, but my funniest moment for Nathan was when we had 7 people in a hotel room, and we were sleeping on the floor, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and he's caressing my forearm.
Wait, did this happen more than once or whatnot? Because that happened at my apartment in College Station.
Maybe that was when it was. I don't know.
I was about to say, if that happened more than once.
I don't think it happened more than once. that I'd have some questions if that were the case.
I remember because I woke up to somebody
Oklahoma
screaming.
City in the La Quinta.
Oh, that was a whole. That's a whole episode.
That's a whole episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember your story with Nathan, because I woke up to the sound of you going, what the heck? And then I hear, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
geez.
And I'd say loyalty for him as well. You tweeted this out the other day. You had a concert, and he was one person there. And I'm like, that's Nathan in a nutshell. Whatever you get going on, he's there to support you in it. I think that's cool.
Yeah, that was a horrific night. Y'all, I've played some great concerts, but my worst ones, there's one constant, and it's that either Nathan or Tyler are there. So
yeah. Speaking of Bret, I was at a concert at Bret's newer place, and it was tough venue. And someone tried to pull into a parking spot where you were playing.
Oh, that was like, really? Yeah. So that Nathan's the first guy I met. The second guy I met in the Friar Tuck group was Andy Archibald, and he's been on the podcast twice. He was on the times,
I believe.
3. Okay.
Well, he was there for a draft. He was there for a Wisconsin episode, and I think he came on for something else.
Couch Crew. Yeah, he was on there.
Yeah.
So wow, I didn't even realize. So he breaks the record on that.
Well, he's like our unofficial third host almost.
Yeah. So I met Andy at check-in in McLean when I was an RA, and I met him with Randy McTwain and Daniel Smith. Now Randy and Daniel walk in. I thought they were from California because they were giving off a vibe. It was like,
they did.
Everything's cool, man. We like you. I'm like, I met you 5 seconds ago. And then Andy walks in behind him, and he was always just smiling about something, just happy to see people. Thing I admire the most about Andy is what you see is what you get. He's a genuine dude, and
generous.
Generous, and like, I don't know, this is gonna sound weird. We may be better friends now than we were back then. Like, he has kept up with us over the years, and that's not easy to do. So I would say, for Andy, that's my admired trait. I left off Nathan's most dangerous thing, and that would also be the box story that we can get to later. Andy, the most dangerous thing Andy ever did was, he didn't cause this, but I remember the most dangerous moment with him. We were driving back from a basketball game at Hardin-Simmons. It was at night, and he had been driving us in your car. It was like your car, but he was driving. And we were coming around this weird, I don't even know what it was. Something was obstructing the horizon.
It was like a bend and a hill. It was curving and going up at the same time.
Like where West Texas and Central Texas are still making out with each other. We were kind of in that no man's land. And this weird glow of like this mystical something appeared.
It was very misty and foggy.
Yeah, and Tyler had like turned to like look in the back seat a few times earlier and kind of swerved while we were driving, and Nathan was about to throw up. So we'd almost died twice. Tyler was no longer driving, but we were driving with Andy, and we see this weird glow. Now you hear sometimes that when people are on their way out, they see a light, and I'm looking at that. I'm like, oh no, like I am not going to be halfway to Abilene when I die. That's not going to happen. And we all freaked. Like all of us looked.
We all thought it was either the aliens coming to abduct us or Jesus coming back.
Yeah, or we were just on our way out. So that freaked us out for about 5 seconds. And then the semi truck comes around the corner and passes, and we realized it was just like something about the haze and the reflection made it look like a rotating glow.
It was wild.
Yeah. So we did not die. He also slammed his phone shut on his girlfriend on that trip. I think that was the most dangerous thing he actually did. But funniest thing Andy ever did would have to be, I had one for this week in mind, and I just blanked. So I'm gonna let you go while I think about it.
Yeah, best traits, generosity for sure. We knew each other freshman year, but we really started to get closer sophomore year. And then we really feel like our friendship really took off after you left, as we were captains together. And kind of from that is people left school, like he stuck around town. And I just stuck around school. So we get real close at that point. Most Andy, like he didn't do dangerous things for the most part. He would like support us and watch it or film it, but he's like, no. He was a little bit smarter.
I always said he was our getaway driver. He was our getaway driver. That's and that's not an exaggeration, y'all. He was literally our getaway driver.
He really was.
And did a good job of it too.
Ever did.
See, that's the problem. It's so hard to pick one moment with these guys. And the reason I wasn't going to use this one is because Andy sort of told it already when he was on the podcast. But when the NCAA wouldn't let us use his train horn at games, so he was in cahoots with a school administrator who shall remain nameless. He puts this train horn behind the visitor stands on a truck and just starts firing it off behind him every time we scored, and we scored a lot that day. So
the funniest thing he ever did that I'll share on a podcast is the signs he would make for football games. He was the master at that.
Justin Feaster.
Justin Feaster was a great quarterback that was like an All-American at Hardin-Simmons, and he Feaster himself had like made a image of him on the cover of NCAA football. And, Madden has the curse of them getting hurt. Well, he did that, and then he got hurt and he was out all season. And so he like had a huge poster. He blew it up real big that said EA curse.
Yeah,
he had a way of really getting
people. Feaster saw it too, y'all. Like we got everyone on the count of 3 to go, "Hey, Feaster, watch this!" And when we did it, we all leaned back, and Andy held up the poster, and we saw it. Feaster kind of goes like this, and he's like, so. Yeah, we made fun of someone's injury.
No, we didn't make fun of his injury. We made fun of him being arrogant enough to Photoshop himself onto the cover of a video game
and think he could avoid the Madden curse.
Yeah, exactly.
So the next guy I met Bret Myers also the year before you came in as a freshman. I like to say that Bret was kind of not the anchor, but if there was ever a time where no one had sound judgment, he would be the one guy that's like, yo, this probably isn't the best idea. I mean, it was like, I remember the time Seth started laughing about something. He looked at Bret and Seth goes, "You're like the most Christian guy I know. Like, you could run a Lifeway store." I was like, what? But he had a point. Bret, I think most dangerous thing he ever did. That's one where I don't know, because he was kind of our safety vest. So he was kind of the antithesis of that. I don't want that to come across like he was lame or anything. Like he did some hilarious stuff, but he was always the one that was kind of like, no, y'all are about to go too far with this. But the funniest thing for some reason, there are two that stick out more than all the rest. Bret had this humor where like, he would look directly at the room at one person and he would grin and he would say something that was just like savage. It was like he went there, even if no one else heard it. And on occasion, Patrick Prazak's kind of the same way, except Patty was like quieter about it. Bret would just like hollered at you across the room. Bret, one time we were at a basketball game and it was one of those where like we were always high energy, but it was during a timeout in which none of us had any energy. It was just kind of like, all right, let's just enjoy the timeout. And they start playing Will Smith, getting jiggy with it. And all of a sudden down the row, I hear, "On your mark, ready, set, let's go. Dance floor." And I look and Bret is standing above everyone, just like tearing this song up with a grin. And I was like, all right, get it, man. And I cracked me up when he did it. That's in the category of you have to be there. But if you were, it was funny.
Yeah, Bret was... He just like he was that. I think of him as like the commentary for all of our adventures. We'd be going off and he would just be kind of there in the background, like just making all these like little snide remarks and comments that just kind of added like almost like a comical soundtrack to what we did.
Sometimes we wanted to slap him for it, but it was always still funny.
Yeah, exactly. And he did not go easy on anyone. Anyone is fair game for Bret.
Yeah, absolutely. But one of the nicest, most genuine guys.
Totally.
He's not going to sugarcoat what he's thinking about anything, but he'll always be decent.
Even at times, maybe he should.
When all of us should. There was actually, I know I've already told my Bret story, but there actually is one funnier. He didn't do it though, so it's not really my Bret story. It's a story involving me with Bret. I went and watched when he was coaching. I forgot the name of the school. It was a tiny school down between Houston and Louisiana, that real small. And they had a game near College Station at some little tiny community. I think it started with an I. So I go out there. It's like a half-hour drive, and it is a small school. And I'm sitting there with Bret's mom, and the other team, their coach is yelling at Bret for some reason, like tell your players how to behave or whatever. And so obviously the fans and the parents of those players are getting mad over on Bret's side. Well, they're all yelling. So Bret finally goes out and he tells the ref and the coaches what for. He goes out there and tells them all. He's got his clipboard and the headset and everything. For those of you familiar with I'm going to age myself, 2005, 2006 YouTube sensation, I'm the Juggernaut. That was our nickname for Bret, because if he knocked and you didn't open the door, he'd just kick it open. And we would just, "Oh, it's the Juggernaut." And at this particular football game, I took it upon myself to raise my hand and holler, "Yeah, don't mess with the Juggernaut." And I yelled that at the ref, and his mother cracks up laughing next to me. I was like, I probably should have asked Bret if I could have done that first. But anyway, you were frozen through that whole story, so I hope you heard it.
I heard it all.
Okay, good. So the next guy we meet was Caine Taylor. And at this point, I think you were in school. No, I met him right before you were in school, but we didn't hang out till you were in school with us. I met him with Emily in the lobby at Getty's, and I was over there hanging out with Jeff Payne. And I look over and I was like, "This is bass player, or I mean, bass player. I had been working on stuff too. I'm baseball player, uh, like making moves on Emily over here. I'm going to keep an eye on this guy." And little did I know that because of Emily, this guy would become brother from another mother. And I will say Caine is he's like my clone, a little better looking, but we I he the funniest thing he did might have also been the most dangerous thing he ever did. Was he started a tradition called burning of the notes. And this is where you would take all your books that the school wouldn't buy back, any notes that you had, just any paper you could find to embellish it, and fill every grill at the apartments on campus and light them up. Just blast some heavy music, probably metal or something, and we would just light these fires. And then we would just yell at people that walk by, "Yeah, stuff," and they like people looked at us like y'all are demons. Like people would walk across the street to get away from it. And but if you know Caine at all, he's an instigator. He was probably the biggest. Yeah. He was the biggest instigator at times. Whether it was instigating a almost fight with an all-American football player, or he didn't instigate, he just made it worse. Yes. But I know I've said this about almost every guy I've mentioned, but it's always had our backs. Like you could rely on him for anything. And his whole family is that way. That when I lived with them, like they were hospitable, great folks. May have been from Alabama, but that's okay. I
forgive them.
Yeah, so I just Caine's one of those where he's a really caring guy, and caring for people comes first, and he's got a good heart. So I admire that about the guy. And yeah, the funniest thing was just us burning stuff.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite traditions we ever had as a group, was that getting to the end of the semester and just being able to go and breathe and burn all them notes, even if it did make my professors mad one time. I think we've shared that story.
We were like Beavis and Butthead standing there, like, fire.
Yeah, Caine is always someone I admired, still do admire and look up to. Like, man, I just wish I could be as witty and as funny and just as cool, or honestly, as Caine. Just cool guy. Amazing sarcasm, get you into any adventure. Golly,
like a 6-hour adventure from the coast
to
San Antonio, to San Marcos, that was that. I look forward to his episode, because I know I said the most dangerous thing he did was almost burn the campus down, but really having an argument with Emily and finally looking at me and smiling, going dark, and hanging up.
Yeah, that's the most dangerous, for sure.
Two bros that hung up on a girl mid-argument, and let's just say, based on what I saw from both instances, I don't recommend it.
No, probably not the wisest, but it worked out. So, it's all good.
So that brings I met you after that. So in the order of history here, and then so after you, the group starts forming with pretty much the guys that we've mentioned, and then we get into my senior year, your sophomore year. And that's when a lot more people started coming over. And there were even guys that really weren't Tuck bros that were around a lot. I'm going to give a shout out to Stephen Schoenwolf, who I doubt watches this.
Yeah.
But he would pop in a lot at our apartment. He never really hung out with the girls in our group, but he would always pop in. And I think the next one we met was actually Seth. I make no.
It was the very beginning of 2009.
Yeah, I make zero guarantees that Seth will come on the podcast. I have mentioned it. We will see what happens. We will try. And the reason I say that is Seth's that guy. We never see him. A lot of people may not hear from him, but he's kind of a maverick. He walks to the beat of his own drum. But if any of us called him up tomorrow and said, "Hey, we're about to get jumped in an alleyway. Can you come help a brother?" He would show up and elbow somebody. So that sounds like a weird description of somebody, but it's just you have to know the guy to understand the guy. But I'm going to include him in this rundown.
Okay.
So when it comes to most dangerous Seth story, I honestly I do have one. Um, he, we were in his Rubicon in the middle of my ranch, and we were flying through this pasture. He's a skunk, and he wants to shoot it. Well, we were not even to the part of our ranch where you go hunting yet, and he was like, "Hey, hold my drink. No, hold the gun. No." And he just like cusses, and he's like, "Take the steering wheel." He grabs a gun, jumps out of a moving car, full sprint, lands his feet, and so he keeps running. Well, I'm in a moving Jeep. Hannah's in the back, and this Jeep has no driver, and it's just full speed. He didn't even slow down before he jumped out with the gun. And so he's running, and it's not a pistol, it's like a full-length rifle, and he's got one arm, and he's just pow, 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 obliterates the skunk. And then I'm reaching over trying to hit the brake while steering this thing just slow enough. He runs back, jumps back in, and keeps driving. And killed many more animals after that. So I
don't think this is the most literal dangerous thing he's done. But the story I'm going to tell is he broke an entire bed just flat on the ground that I was laying on. He didn't move onto the bed and smashed it all in a hotel room, and we had to just barely piece it back together. And so if someone even just kind of went and sat on that bed too hard, it would have collapsed for him, and then that person's probably going to feel awful about themselves. That was kind of dangerous.
It was amazing, y'all. We're sitting in this hotel room, and we had booked the trip on a credit card that happened to belong to Ken Archibald. And so Andy, Papa Arch, and Andy did not want anything to go wrong. We're sitting in the room, and I think Andy and I are actually being responsible. We're working on homework. It's dead silent. And all of a sudden we hear, bro. And we look up. Tyler's on one bed, Seth's on the other, and Seth goes, stay where you are. I'm gonna like front flip from this bed. I'm gonna land on it, and I'm gonna bounce you to this one. And I look over, and Andy's eyes go like this from his computer. He just kind of, it was like Wilson from Home Improvement. He looks up all concerned, and he's like, guys, it's on the credit card. Seth gets up, front flips in the room, lands on his back on Tyler's bed, and instead of bouncing Tyler to the other bed, the whole thing just collapses, all four legs in half. So picture four college dudes, splinter by splinter, trying to put a bed back together. And yeah, I'll cut the bed breaker story off there because it only got worse. But that's where his nickname came from. But
sorry, I'm being obnoxious. I've got an important work text I have to answer, and I got to think about. So I'm out of it. Hang on.
I'll talk to our viewers while you're doing that. Thing I admire about Seth though is he's still my brother. It's been years since college, and Seth is so loyal that he keeps a very small circle, and he's loyal to everybody in it. And even this, I think it was roughly a year ago next month, you and I still got to see him, and it was kind of like a lot of people don't get that opportunity. So it was cool that we got to go hang out with him again, and
that was nice to randomly see him again, even though we live in the same town.
I know.
We do not see each other.
Well, I talked to him I think 2 weeks ago, something like that. So yeah, it was. He works in law enforcement, so anytime there's like somebody needs a reference for him or anything over the years, I'll get a call, and I'll always forget or not know they're calling, and I'll get a call. It's like, this is the sheriff's department. Do you know a Seth Prohaska? I'm like, whatever it was, man. We weren't there, and yeah.
And I'd say his best attributes are both his spontaneity,
yes,
and his loyalty.
Yeah. Didn't y'all drive all the way to Port Aransas one night just because, and then y'all came back?
Yeah. My favorite spontaneous moment for him, and it also could have been the most dangerous thing maybe, is we were at Port A together, and he met a new friend, and he just gave me his Jeep and said, I'm going to Corpus with them.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'll get back, but we'll figure it out.
He's loyal, but he would also disappear without warning at all.
But he trusted his Jeep to me. So that's like a Seth in a microcosm right there, I think. And he did come back. He was all right.
If anybody listens to this podcast who is a diehard fan of Guns N' Roses, I will just make this quick analogy before moving on. He is Axl Rose without singing. He's everything you've heard about Axl Rose, but he's also very much Izzy Stradlin. And just for anyone that doesn't know who Izzy is, he's a Guns N' Roses rocker who, instead of being on their big tour around the world, he lives in the desert playing acoustic guitar by campfire, and no one knows where he is. So that's Seth in a nutshell. Oh, and if you've never seen him, he's kind of the reason we were cocky. We knew we could go anywhere and say anything we wanted because this dude could beat the crap out of literally anybody, and we knew he would if it was for some. He never started anything with anyone, but if somebody else, especially a female, was in a bind, there came our security system. So yeah, there were several times where I thought I was bad because me and Seth are going to take this guy, and then the moment Seth moved away, I'm like, all right. Yeah. Well, after we met Seth, there were, like I mentioned, a couple other guys.
That's like the core group of the guys that started off with right there. Now, definitely we have people come in later and people leave, but
there was so the one guy who's like kind of still with us is a guy that didn't even come in until like 2-3 years later. Was Patty was a 2012 byproduct, wasn't he? At the embassy,
2013, I thought.
Was it? Well, I was working on the campaign. I think it was sometime around there. All I remember without going back and looking is Seth. I always forget this. Seth and Patty were never really around the group at the same time, but Seth was a big part of bringing Patty in because Patty had started dating Amanda, and we had this big graduation party for Bret at our place. And that was the first time we met Patty. So Patty's a quiet guy, real nice guy. We didn't know much about him, but we liked him. We're like, okay, we get along with this guy. Well, let's just say beverages were had that night, and I didn't realize that people were just handing him beverages left and right. And I guess I don't know if we want to make an impression or what, but I get up the next morning and I walk in my living room. I'm like, dude, those people who came over left a mess in here. And Seth had texted me. He'd been waiting outside my door knocking since like 5 a.m. So I open the door. This is like 7:30. He walks in, and I'm just like, dude, look at this mess. It's like Willy Wonka's factory if he was making alcohol. And I look around, and then Seth laughs and goes, is that guy dead? I'm like, what? And I look, and there's this body sprawled out on my living room floor. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we finally like Amanda's boyfriend, and we killed him. So it was kind of a terrifying moment because he wouldn't wake up at first, but then he was fine, and now he's a doctor, and that never happened again. But to me, that was the most. I skipped ahead to Patty. That's my most dangerous Patty moment by far. Either that or when we got chased by a crackhead out of a Burger King in Austin, and Patty had to get a running jump and leap into a moving car for us to get away. So that the funniest and most dangerous. He kind of had like two there. Seth jumped out of moving cars. Patty had to jump in them.
I think the most dangerous thing that Patty ever did was get us the hotel that we stayed in Mississippi. I was terrified.
I was not there for that one, but yeah, it was. Patty was he was almost like Bret in that he was Patty was almost like Bret in the sense that he could kind of hang back and make commentary, but also like he would go along. He was like Nathan to where he would quietly go along with some stuff too. So it was, he's still in our circle of dudes, and yeah, we still I'm not skipping the females because I don't think they're important. It's just half of them wouldn't want me talking about them, and the other half it's kind of like there were more girls in that group than guys, probably 2-1, just like UMHB's ratio. I mean, when you really look at the history of it, there were a lot because each of us had somebody we ended up marrying, and then they had friends. It's kind of like there were always.
I didn't marry anyone in the group.
Well, you brought her in though. I mean, there was still that last.
Yeah, I don't count it though, because there was one. She was at one Festivus. Yeah. So I guess, the very end, but like everyone except me was graduated by that point.
Yeah. It's funny that I counted your wife and you didn't. I would. So the most dangerous thing Tyler's ever done. No, I would say, well, our group, y'all, I graduated in 2010, but that group of people didn't really disband, so to speak, until around 2014, 2015. It stuck around, and then it kind of just became the guys would get back together. And even now, that's really hard to make happen, but we still send each other stupid stuff. So I would say, the girls, some of them are down to be on the podcast. There were also a couple of guys later on that I call it the Jimmy Crespo Aerosmith. No one really cares about Aerosmith when Joe Perry's not playing guitar, but whenever he left, there was another guy playing guitar. Whenever Nathan and Caine were both in DFW, obviously still in our group, but they couldn't really be around often. That's when Zach Martin kind of came in. And if Andy wasn't around, Zach would be in the room. It's like it was always one of those two. When Nathan wasn't there, Jake Mayfield was always in the room. And there's actually a picture of us at Amanda and Patty's wedding. It's kind of like the alternate lineup, where you just kind of like sub out those two.
You always talk about it in terms of a band, which I have a hard time relating to that. I've never been in a band. I think of it as more of like sports teams, over the course of like 20 years, you had Popovich and Timmy and Tony and Manu. And then outside of that, you had other guys that would come in and leave. Sometimes they'd be there a long time. Bruce Bowen, Kawhi, Patty Mills, and sometimes they'd be there a short time. Shout out Richard Jefferson. I won't, you know what I could like go, who all was what spurred, but I won't do that. And then others, came in late but stuck around the whole time. It's just
you remember the nickname we had for Jake, Zach, Michelle, and when Emily and Laura would come in?
I do not.
The joke was it was the Latter-day Tucks. It was like I do remember that. Honestly, your analogy is perfect. It was like the team is still there. These are some different players, and someone's gonna Jerry Krause this thing soon. Like by the time it's weird to say it ended. We weren't a band. We didn't break up, but like the way it ended. By the time it ended, we kind of knew it was coming. So it was. I got to give a shout out to Jake and Zach because they were kind of. We still talk to those guys. Like I talked to Zach recently about something. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, and like they were around for a lot of it. And so like if you were to say the words, "Hey, Friar Tuck," they would know what's up. It just they weren't there for the wild heyday of it.
Yeah. I think ultimately like Friar Tuck is the story of just like a certain smallish kind of window in time in which our social lives were probably the most important thing to us. And we made a lot of great memories, and it was just a cool, special time that the memories last forever. And because of that, the friendships, continue on despite us moving off. And I say all moving in separate directions. Almost everybody's up in Dallas, except
losers,
Belton or Temple. And I'm like the one weirdo way down south in New Braunfels,
People thought I had a big head for going to College Station when I left Belton, and now I'm like the only one that lives in Temple.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny. That's why I had to break my book up into 4 parts because none of it makes one consistent story. It's like, is this a college story? Are y'all talking about a friend group? What are y'all talking about? It's like for me, it started in college, but because it lasted after all of us had graduated, it was like it kind of became How I Met Your Mother, just with a lot more cast members.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's rare. That's when people say, "You're college friends." I'm like, yeah, they're my college friends, but they're still my people, like to this day. It was just, I don't even know what you would call it.
Bros.
And yeah. So we actually had another question submitted on Instagram. Shout out to Keanu, who was on both Couch Crew episodes. He asked, and I would like your opinion on this. Should Kobe have taken an Uber?
Oh, that's dude. Okay, no, that's referencing his death.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna say that despite how unfortunate that was, if I had access to a helicopter, given how I felt about traffic in the last couple of places I lived, I'd have still taken the helicopter.
Just such a morbid question.
It really is. All right, yeah, morbid question, folks. I had to cut out for a second because our Wi-Fi didn't make it, but you heard a really weird question and answer. But before we go, it dawned on me this wouldn't be fair. We're kind of like spilling the tea on all of our bros. We didn't really talk about the most dangerous thing. I won't make you say what you admire about me because we all know I'm just the most admirable person on the planet.
No, I know what I admire about you. Is that you like don't really care what people think. If you get something in your head to do something, like you're just gonna do it. Like maybe to your own detriment and maybe to your own success, but like you'll find out at the end.
And I add the blessing / curse of I have a lot of ideas that sound insane, and I'd say like 80% of them work, and so it's kind of like making people be like, "You're gonna do what?" And like, well, yeah, I got a good feeling about this one.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the trait I admire the most, just because I am so far in the opposite end of that. I am terrified of failure. And I'm like, no, 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 no. That people are going to think I'm crazy. And you're like, let's do it. So, like, in a lot of ways, I feel like that was what really drew me to you as friends early on, was just like, yeah, screw it. Let's go. And so that was fun. Most dangerous thing you ever did? Oh, honestly, I don't know. Probably
I have an opinion, but you weren't there for it.
Breaking into different things. You know,
like
Kyle filled on occasion.
They left the gate open.
They did. I know. I'm with you. On more than one occasion, to be honest.
Well, okay, I know what you're talking about now. I forgot all about that. Let's just say the gate was open, and my philosophy at the time, folks, this is pre-renovated.
Was open, go.
It was open. It's like, well, then that's an invitation, right? Public property. So we walk around, but the elevator was running for some reason, and we may or may not have just gotten to go see what it looked like from the top of Kyle Field. And then we freaked out because we're like, this is probably illegal. So we left immediately. But
it started small. It was like, hey, this gate's open. Hey, this elevator works. Yeah. Hey, this door's unlocked. Oh, look at that. We're in the press box. Yeah. Did not plan it out. It just kind of happened.
In our defense, the press box doesn't exist anymore. So we're good. I think statute of limitations is over.
So
we didn't touch any. We didn't touch anything. We didn't touch anything. We just saw it and we're like, and we're gonna leave. Most dangerous thing I've ever done happened to be in college, and that was not being able to see, but like 20 yards ahead of me, and so using a GPS to drive around Des Moines, Iowa, instead of we never even saw Des Moines.
Yeah,
we just thought we were in the middle of nowhere, and it was so foggy. We could now. I want to.
I could also add driving with me.
Yeah, that too. I think I've had more wrecks, but I didn't cause any of them. It's weird. I would say this though, if you ask anyone else who was on the trip with the fog and the driving, no, I was not going 70. No, I was not going 150 miles an hour. Aaron Connor and Nate Outland, who liked it. It's like the fisherman story. They, apparently I was driving faster every time someone tells it. We were going like 40 or 50, which was still stupid. Got up to maybe 70 at a couple points.
Yeah. What was so there's fun? Oh, the funniest, golly. I don't know if I can come up with the funniest thing you ever did. Honestly, like making the skit videos we did are up there. Washing a car in the freezing cold to a Guns N' Roses song. That was I don't think you did that.
No,
it was us to do it. Were you in it?
It was worse than that. It was Total Eclipse of the Heart by Bonnie Tyler.
Oh, is that not a Guns N' Roses song?
No, it was Bonnie Tyler singing. Okay. And we were, I could see why we would have done that. But no, it was for Hannah's birthday. We stole her Jeep and I was like, we're going to wash it for you. And we did. It was just, I think it was shirtless.
Dirtier afterwards.
It was much dirtier. Shirtless and rubbing dish soap all over a car. And I remember, I think it was Amanda and Carly were filming us, and they couldn't get through it without laughing. We're trying. Nathan could put an emotional face on. He's like wiping the windshield, all seductive, and like we're dying the whole time. This elderly couple drives by, and the guy just like scowls at us. But the old lady goes, I was like, okay, that's enough of this. We actually had to go wash that car the next day.
Yeah, it felt like it was about this time of year. Is Hannah's birthday around now?
December.
Okay, yeah, I just know it was cold.
Yeah, it was 20. I think it was like 25 degrees. It was very cold. It was in the 20s.
Yeah, it was gross.
Yeah. Well, what are you looking forward to most about the upcoming episodes?
Oh man, just hearing the stories being retold are good. We'll see which ones get told, which ones stay in the vault.
Yeah. What's the FCC, the censoring commission?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like we sometimes I think we're just overprotective and scared sometimes because honestly the stories if you think of like college stories, like they're really very mild. They're hilarious.
Oh yeah. Mild. I don't think that we're overprotective. I think other people are overreactive. And unfortunately, because of that, we have to be like, There's nothing wrong with the story, but I can't tell it. I would say for you, most dangerous, I wouldn't even be able to pinpoint one. It's some of the stuff back in the day, just the daredevil activities that went on. I can't. I'm not being a cop out here. For you, I cannot think of the most dangerous, and thinking of the most funny is also kind of tricky. Using a swordfish to troll somebody in a basketball game was pretty funny, even though it's a story none of us were technically there for. That was pretty good.
Yeah. Dangerous for me. Like most of those stories happen with like my group of high school friends who all wakeboarded and did motocross together. So like setting things on fire and jumping over it on dirt bikes and setting a wakeboard rail on fire and riding across it, that sort of stuff is definitely the most dangerous I did. That's a whole different friend group though.
UMHB needs to turn stunt night into a real stunt night. And
honestly, that's what I thought it was when I got there. And I was so excited. I'm like, guys, I'm going to win this. This is for me.
I was confused because when I read about it, I was like, beginning in the year 19, whatever year that was, I'm thinking an all-girls school in the 1920s or whatever doing stunts. This is weird.
I know. Yeah. That was such a bummer. That was the most disappointing thing about Mary Hardin Baylor, was finding out stunt night did not involve actual stunts. I don't know. How can you say what the funniest thing someone did was? Who knows?
It's so hard.
You know what? I will. It's not the funniest thing I did, but it's on up there. And it's when I got a children's onesie pajama from Walmart. And I went running around campus. We're like running out of the woods. People like by the cathedral, there were a bunch of woods. And as a car would drive by, I'd run across and then I'd stop and like freeze and like look at them. Really any sort of thing I did, like just dressing up and doing goofy stuff. Like
after you did that, I remember
y'all this character called Simon.
Oh gosh. That might was the funniest.
a cowboy from Abilene. Who maybe enjoyed, we don't know, but
we don't know.
He could have enjoyed an alternative lifestyle that
could have been. We don't know.
He was brave.
It was never said.
Simon was brave.
I will say this
about
the
getting beat up by a football player because of that.
Thanks, Caine. And that too. When you did the onesie thing, I remember we grabbed a bicycle that someone just left leaning against our apartment building, and it had a little dinger bell on it, like the little ding 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 thing. And I remember you trying to balance on it. It was like a kid's bike, and you're like looking like this is how you look. And somebody's driving, and you went ding ding like this at them. And I just remember them swerving around the road to like go around you. And Nathan and I were cracking up laughing the whole time.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but it sounds about right.
Well, I know you've got to get home, and I've got a little one that's about to go to sleep, so we'll go talk to her. But next time, folks, it begins. Nathan Berryman, whether you're ready for him or not.
That'll be fun. It'll be exciting. Well, it is 6:51 and HSU
still sucks.
Still sucks.